Hey, everybody, and welcome to an utter indie film cafe Criterion Watch.
Hey,
How's it going, everyone? And I'm your old pal, the Moo Cow, and I'm joined by
Jonathan Moody, and by Rocky, who's going to probably be making a lot of noise. So sorry about that.
It Is What It Is. And this time we are dealing with the 1987 film, sort of the German New Wave film from Wim Wenders called Wings of Desire.
Wings of Desire. Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's a pretty interesting film. Initially, I remember seeing at least part of this back in the day. I didn't finish it, and I was just struck by the overall cinematography of it. So this time, I got to actually sit down and watch the whole thing and enjoy it as a story, and it was pretty interesting. Yeah, I guess it's more of a fantasy, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
but I like how it's set in late 80s in sort of the crumbling slash rebuilding period of West Berlin, soon to be Berlin again, because it's a city that's sort of caught at a crossroads with its World War II past, and there's a lot of imagery of stuff happening in World War II and deaths and bombings and rubble, and the current situation that they're in. You see a lot of shots of the Berlin Wall, and this is all prior to Germany becoming, and Berlin especially, started turning into the economic powerhouse of Europe that it is today. So it's sort of at a crossroads, and this movie is a nice little encapsulation of that. You see a lot of shots of some of the architecture, like there's a church that the movie opens up in, where our main character is Damiel. He was an angel, and he's kind of positioning himself on top, looking down over the city, and he's right next to an angel. So people are looking up there and seeing the angel, but they're actually seeing the statue angel. But the church itself is still in ruins because it was bombed during the war. So
Did you know that church? Were you familiar with it?
I wasn't familiar with it, but it stands to reason that's why it was still there. But there was a lot of rebuilding. I mean, decades after World War II, Berlin was still building itself
And
back
we
up.
got to see the Berlin Wall, like the
Got to
whole
see the
thing,
Berlin Wall.
in black and white, which looks beautiful, and in color, which I was not aware. Like when the black and white hit, you didn't really see all the like stuff drawn on it and everything. But when it was in color, you could
It popped
see,
out.
yeah, that stuff popped out a lot. It was
Yeah,
kind of cool.
the idea is that you have these angels who are observant, and they're sort of living forever, but all they can really do is observe and listen to humans as they go about their daily business, just thinking about different things, and
Hmm.
then they report to each other some of the things that are kind of more interesting than the others. One guy says, "Oh, blah 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 blah," and this one said, "Oh, blah 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 blah." Whereas most of them are just kind of blah 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 blah. Some of them are a little esoteric and philosophical, which is kind of weird.
One thing I noticed though, we talked about because sort of in the beginning of the movie, the two angels are like talking in a car together, and they kind of mention one kind of mentions how he wants to cause chaos or whatever, and that kind of stuff. But they can't interfere, right? They
Right.
can't actually do anything. So the guy kind of the what's his name? Cassiel is sort of like telling Daniel, like we can't interfere, and this isn't, it doesn't, right? Like he's the more, I guess, stoic one.
Yeah, I
The
don't want to
one,
say down to earth because he's not down to earth.
he's down, he's up in the
Yeah,
heavens,
no, no,
man.
he's the rules are the rules kind of guy.
Yeah, he has the rules. He tries to obey the rules, but you can tell he is so bored.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
his character
But
just
I think he understands that, it's a one-way thing. I mean, once you cross over, it looks like that's that.
that's it. You're no longer an angel if
And
you
you're no
cross
longer
over.
immortal.
Yeah, and I don't know what I really like if that was my job, was to just as an angel, was just to watch people.
Mm.
I'd be so
Yeah.
like I would hate it. Like I'd
Well,
be
it'd
like,
be interesting at first, but thousands and thousands of years later, yeah, it's gonna suck.
yeah, especially if like it doesn't seem like it's not like they tour the world, they
Well,
get their one place.
and it's not like, I guess these are the original angels and not humans who live a nice life and die and then become an angel,
Right.
because they don't understand what it's like to live as human beings. They see human beings, they listen to their thoughts, but they don't understand why humans do the things they do. I mean, not that we understand the things that we do either, but they have even less of an idea. And that's kind of what the movie is about, is sort of experiencing it through their eyes. And that's why when we're seeing the world through their eyes, everything is in black and white, because they can see everything, but they don't understand it because they don't have a sense of color. They don't have a sense of contract, or sorry, context. You know what I mean? Color adds context to an image.
Well, then 1 second, real quick. I think we can fix the sound to even be better.
Just keeps getting better.
I
and
know.
better.
Let's see. Hey, all right. Well, this is working, so that's good.
All right.
All right.
So yeah, so we're seeing everything while the angels are there through their eyes in black and white, and then there are periods when we get humans' point of view and it's in color, and then finally, when Damiel does decide to cross over because of a beautiful woman that he finds, and he decides he really likes her, and he decides that's it. He's going to make the big plunge, as he calls it, and then he sees the world through color, and he's experiencing like blood for the first time, and that's his own. And yeah, and then you see everything in color, and it's a very different thing. And the other one just kind of hangs back,
Yeah, he doesn't want any of that. That wasn't his. That's not his purpose in life. That's not his desire.
Right.
And
right.
the whole movie's called Wings of Desire. The whole point of the movie, I guess, is that Damiel has this because of a girl, which we'll talk about in a second, but because of a girl, he even says that to the awesome Peter Falk, who we'll also talk about in a second. That was the reasoning is that he wanted to become a earthling, a human, is that basically a desire to be loved by this beautiful.
I mean, I think about it like this. I mean, think about a really, really cool video game that you like.
Right.
Silent Hill, just for example. Let's just take that for example. Say you play it for years and years and years and years and you love it. You can only experience Silent Hill that way. But you decide for whatever reason that you're going to cross over into the Silent Hill world and experience life as a character in the game. It's a whole completely different experience. And that's kind of how I see this. The angels are observing, but they're sort of looking at it like through a movie or a game or a book. And it's not until they cross over to actually fully experience that.
Yeah. What if he had crossed over, he became human, and then he met the girl and she was like, ew. I have no interest in you.
And that's a freaking huge ass risk. I mean,
I know.
What if you get hit by a car as soon as you're there? Because hopefully you understand what cars are by then. But
well, yeah, I mean, you see them. You're
but there's
pretty sure
stuff like disease and
the thing is one thing confused me though. He didn't understand what the colors were, right? But
right.
he could understand people talking all the time, right? He knew what they were saying,
right?
So that's the only thing I know is like
he heard the word yellow, but he didn't have a context for what that meant until he
you're right.
Saw it.
Yeah, because the colors were, because he already saw everything in black and white.
Right.
Now he was seeing everything in color. So okay, that totally makes way more sense.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
And then so he could have got hit by a car. You could have there are a million things could have happened.
And as it turns out, there is a movie that comes in after. There's a sequel. I think it's the early 90s, like 93, 94, something like that. And it's called Far Away, So Close, which I believe continues on. So I think these characters kind of continue, or maybe it's somewhat different, or maybe it's a different angel. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's along the lines of, the angels probably, now experiencing life, and, maybe he has a few regrets. I don't know. It's could be interesting because,
was that a criterion? I wonder.
I don't know, but you got to figure it's just like a normal person. How when you first fall in love with someone, everything is sunshine and roses, and then it's not until later on when reality hits, and it's like, oh well, there's definitely some negatives that go along too. And is it worth it? Is it not worth it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's a big risk, no matter what you do.
Risk.
I mean, if you want to leave being immortal and being an angel, which means you are a leader of God, and you decide to go off of that path and become a human, where you're just a being, you don't have any powers, you don't have any immortality. You when you die, you hopefully go to heaven.
But here's the thing that I think helps him make his decision. He runs into Peter Falk. And in this world, Peter Falk is actually one of them.
Was one of them.
Was one of them. He was an angel who crossed over because he could feel him or feel his presence. Because there was a scene early on where he's there and getting coffee and everything, and he's like, I can sense you're there, I can feel you're there, I'm a friend, and blah blah blah. And nobody else was like that. I mean, people kind of maybe sensed something was in the area, maybe a little bit, but not like him.
Yeah, because that girl has said that when, like, I guess when he put his hand over or whatever, that she could feel something is
right,
like touching inside her or whatever. But I thought that was a little creepy.
So at the time, I remember thinking to myself, okay, there's got to be a reason why Peter Falk is saying this. Well, as it turns out, Peter Falk confesses to him, he's like, yeah, he was like, you were one too, and he's like, yeah.
But it was weird. It was like, you too, and like we had to like think about it. Like, wait, is that confirming that Peter Falk was an angel before? Which would make more sense than anybody else in the freaking 80s. That
it has to be an angel to be a Columbo. I mean,
which they do mention Columbo.
They do. It was great.
You thought it would be hilarious because he was putting on hats at one point, and you're like, can I get a hat that doesn't make me look like Columbo?
Right.
And you thought that would be a line like in the movie,
line.
Right? And then later, the one person passes by, goes, "Is that Columbo?"
Yeah.
And the other person goes, "No, I don't think so."
It was funny.
And it was funny because he was playing himself. So there's plenty of jokes in jokes.
But it's great. It was like a perfect guy to say this guy used to be an angel and he's come to Earth, and not only has he come to Earth, he's decided to become an actor, and he's done all these great roles, and he's been such a really cool guy.
I think that was the idea, is like maybe Peter Falk as an angel saw an actor, saw acting and was like, I'm interested in doing that. Like that was his desire. I think everybody who turns from angel to human has a desire, right? Or whatever.
Right. So. I mean, because it would have been so different. It would have been anybody. I mean, imagine if it had been someone like, I don't know, Richard Gere, or I don't know, John Wayne, Tom Hanks. It would have been, the context would have been different. It just seemed to fit so well.
The Hanks now might work.
Yeah, maybe now.
Because back then he was only known, like, I think I don't even know if he had done Big by then. So he was not even that.
I think he had, but he had done that, and he had done what was the mermaid movie that was Splash, but he hadn't done Philadelphia, and he hadn't done some of the bigger ones,
Forrest Gump, and all the things that people sort of know him, and they sort of know, was it Tom Hanks as a a nice guy, like one of the nicest guys, you know what I mean? Like nobody has ever said an unkind thing about him. Right. Nobody said an unkind thing about Peter Falk.
Yeah, he's kind of like, Tom Hanks is kind of like today's Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, it's good. We need something like that, somebody like that.
But it was just neat, and Peter, because I was wondering along the lines like, why Peter Falk? Why? And then it wasn't until I got to see the whole movie, it's like, okay, this makes a lot more sense.
But it was fun to see Peter Falk be Peter Falk, and we read something that he was like walking around the city and got lost or whatever.
Yeah, he wanted to visit Berlin,
and they couldn't find him. They had to track him down into a cafe, and he was just so happy to be there that he took extra time so that they could give him some extra seats so that he could stay,
and just hang out in Berlin.
Yeah.
Which there was a lot going on at the time. It was really cool seeing, not only the old architecture and the Berlin Wall and all that, but the underground music scene. You get to see Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds perform.
You were like, that's, after I said it was Nick Cave, cool. You're like, oh my God, that's Nick Cave.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Oh, neat was that. It was.
And Wim Wenders, one of the things he's also known, in addition to doing the German cinema, is that he did a lot of music videos for different bands. And there's that one scene where the angel's up on top, and you see the turning Mercedes sign, and I was like, that was in a music video that I used to love back in the 80s. It may have been him that did it. I don't know.
Yeah, you're saying
for Leather Nun.
Leather Nun.
Yeah, I Can Smell Your Thoughts is the song. And yeah, but there was a lot of cultural stuff, a lot of underground stuff coming out of
really
Germany.
Cool. That Wim Wenders was actually a big fan of the underground music scene at that time. I mean, the funny thing is, I was talking to somebody about it. The underground music scene is still there now.
Sure.
You just gotta go find it.
Sure.
I mean,
same thing with the art scene and the cinema. There was a lot of great cinema coming out of the 80s
especially in New
Germany.
York.
But in Germany, especially, you got to think Werner Herzog was hitting his period at this time, and God, what's his name? George Butin, your guy who did the Necromantique movies and all that. That was underground. It was like underground extreme. But there's also stuff. There was a movie called Bale that was really, really big. It was really good. A lot of art cinema. It was kind of similar to the French New Wave that happened a couple decades before. And parallel to, there was an English underground scene that happened too. A lot of gangster movies that in the early to mid 80s that were coming out. So there was a lot going on, and it's just cool that this movie is able to capture all of that at the same time while doing its own story. It was really well done.
Yeah, it's just like there was. I mean, it was 2 hours and 7 minutes, but it almost didn't feel like it. Like it did go pretty quickly.
In the beginning, it was a little sluggish. I have to admit, I was kind of hoping things would pick up.
But once
it did,
you're right. In the beginning, it might be sluggish, but the cinematography in the beginning was fucking killer.
That was way cool. It took us a little bit to sort of understand what was going on.
Yeah.
Because we were like, why is there no dialogue? Is this all internal monologue? What's going on here? And then once it establishes itself, then you're like, oh, okay, I think I get it now.
You still hear a lot of internal monologue throughout the whole movie.
But it makes more sense.
Yeah, it makes more sense. And I mean, some people are just, I guess everybody who spoke in their monologue spoke in like philosophy. That's why I said like it felt sort of Richard Linklater style, where people are just talking in philosophies.
I have to say, as far as the cinematography, that was the main thing that got me way back when this movie first came out and I was first interested. And it just drove that home even more because it was an interesting parallel of, there's a lot of like the early German stuff, like you might see Fritz Lang kind of stuff, Metropolis and M and all that kind of stuff in there. Just the way that they're shot, especially when that giant statue and the cathedrals and some of the architecture, that was really cool. But then you have these other things that made me think of Orson Welles, like that one shot, or several shots where they're doing the set, Peter Falk's World War II set, and you're seeing 3 levels at the same time with different stuff going on.
Yeah, it felt very
inside
like
the building.
That scene in Citizen Kane, where you went up the levels or whatever.
Yeah. So that was really, really cool. A lot of helicopter shots that I was remember saying it's like drone shots before drone shots.
Yeah, they were amazing.
Very cool.
There was just a lot of cinematography that was great. The writing was interesting. There's, like the idea of like leaving your leaving your world to go be in another world that you're unfamiliar with but excited about. I like that. And what was that at the end of the movie? There was like a little bit, we were talking about there was basically a big theme for the whole thing, which was Peter Falk says, he says, I've got so much I want to learn from you. And he says, I can't teach you it all. You're gonna have to learn it yourself.
Right.
And he said, that's the fun of it. And I said, and I was like thinking, that's very true. Like, you don't think about it because most of the time learning this shit is tough and everything, but it's sort of fun. It's fun doing something new and exciting.
Yeah. If we had to sit there and read This Is Life, it would be convenient, but it's not the same thing as living your life.
Right. Actually doing it and having these stories that you can tell.
One last thing I want to say about the cinematography is that this kind of underlined a belief that I personally have always had, in that it always seems to me that things like architecture and landscape look a lot more interesting in black and white than they do in color. Not all the time, but depending on how you present it. Whereas people are always to me a little more interesting in color than they are in black and white.
Yeah.
I like the way that we go back and forth between their points of view, depending on what stock of film they're using.
I was a big fan of the black and white film. Like it looked beautiful.
Really does.
Yeah. And the fact that it flashes from black and white to color to black and white sometimes, you know, depending on who you're seeing perspective. Oh, I forgot to mention the girl. Oh goodness gracious. The girl, Marion, the character Marion, the actress, unfortunately she has died.
What a heartbreak.
Died in 2007 at the age of 45 to cardiac arrest, and that's terrible. But she actually learned her own trapeze stuff, you know.
She was really good. You could tell she was doing it all herself.
Yeah, she did all her own stunts. It was amazing. And had to have been scary as hell, you know. So I really enjoyed that. I mean, I don't know. I liked the whole movie. I want to say I was a little shocked because I might have heard the title before, but I didn't know anything about it going in. And in fact, I was very glad I didn't know anything going in because it made it more fun, you know?
Well, again, I knew this movie primarily through its visuals. I didn't know so much about the story other than very vague. And I remember I was saying, this is typically not a thing for me because, there's a whole bunch of, Hollywood angel fantasy kind of movies, especially in like Nora Ephron and all that came out in the 90s that I just, Michael, garbage as far as I was concerned. So I didn't think that this was going to be in that direction, but you never really know. I didn't think that the story, or I wasn't sure the story was going to be able to be as good as the cinematography for the reason for me liking this film, but it really is, especially if you just kind of sit back and let the story tell itself and, don't get too caught up in the first 10 minutes when you're trying to figure out what's going on. You'll figure it out. Just go ahead and let it tell its story.
See, that's going to be the problem for most people. There's going to be a couple problems for most normal Americans right now, especially like the new generations and stuff like that, younger kids. First of all, people hate black and white. There's a big thing of getting rid of black and white. Like they don't want black and white films anymore. In fact, a lot of distributors won't buy your film if it's shot in black and white, which is stupid.
It's a lost art. I mean, I have to say this though, it does look completely different on film than it does just doing a video or digital and then just turning the color off. It doesn't look the same. Like
Clerks looks better in black and white than it does in Clerks 3 in color. Honestly, it looks cooler and it's got a little class to it, and stuff.
Because in black and white on film has a range of tonality that doesn't really exist in the world of color because we don't see things quite like that. And so it just looks beautiful and it looks wonderful. I mean, I think, like one of the most beautiful shot films I have ever seen in my life is The Elephant Man. If you've ever seen that, just the black and white was really great. The other one I'm thinking of is Young Frankenstein. It just would not have worked in color. I mean, it would have worked as a film, but it wouldn't have worked in the same aesthetic because that's another movie that is beautifully shot in black and white. And it's not easy. It's a very different lighting scheme. It's a very different everything.
The other thing that would be a problem for people of our generation is you're right. Basically how long it takes the slow moments of the first 10 minutes. A lot of people will give up movies. We live in a very everything's on digital. We can watch anything at any moment. And it gets to be a point where people just turn off.
How many producers have said, if the film doesn't grab me in the first 5 minutes, I'm not watching it.
So there you go. But I still say go watch it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Another thing is this. I don't know if it's on Blu-ray. He's got the DVD.
I'm sure it's on Blu-ray. I just didn't. Unfortunately, when I bought it, they only had the DVD.
It's got 2 discs. The first disc is new, restored, high definition digital transfer, supervised and approved by director Wim Wenders.
And it looked really, really good, even for a Blu-ray.
Or DVD. Well, mine kind of upscales it to 4K a little bit, so my TV. So that might have also, kind of helped. But audio commentary featuring Wenders and actor Peter Falk.
Nice.
Trailers and new and improved English subtitle translation.
I am dying to hear Peter Falk's commentary on
Yeah,
this.
I think you'd love that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, tell me how that is. Then there's a 2003 documentary on Disc 2 that is featuring interview. It's called The Angels Among Us, and features interviews with vendors, Falk actors Bruno Gans and Otto Sander, writer Peter Handrick, and composer Jürgen Knieper. Then there's a Wim Wenders Berlin, January 87, from an episode of a French television program called Cinema Cinemas, including on-set footage. That's
Nice.
cool. Interview with director of photography Henry Lakin. Delete scenes, outtakes, excerpts from Lakin, Lemur, and Gans and Sanders remembrance film for Boris 1982. Notes and photos, plus a booklet in here.
Nice. And one thing I forgot to mention, and neither of us really mentioned, even though there are all these angels sort of like watching us and observing us and all that, while they are distant, sort of psychologically or mentally or everything, physically, they're right there. They're like right in your bubble. Like
They're right here, right
so
now.
many different shots of them, like literally hanging like an inch away from you.
There's an angel right behind you.
Exactly, and it's just funny how that's so close and yet so far away.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
There's that one point you were mentioning because Nick Cave is singing, and the guy's like literally right next to him in his bubble, and he's just singing, and the guy's just staring.
You got to pretend that he's not there.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to pretend he's not there, and like, dude, oh my god, I can feel your breath. Like,
but it's so funny. It kind of encapsulates the angels perfectly, that there's, they have to be distant, but at the same time they're so curious. They're right there, literally.
Yeah.
In your bubble, and nobody knows it, or at least maybe some have a vague sense, but for the most part, nobody knows. It was really cool.
I think if they do it like enough where it starts to kind of, like people can start to feel it, I think when they started to feel it, that was the desire, kind of, kind of happening. So anywho, well, that's it. That's it for the I guess episode, unless is there anything more?
The only other thing I wanted to say is that, most of the other Hollywood angel things are usually, someone falls in love with an angel. In this case, it was the angel falling in love with the human, which was a nice reverse. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Now Hollywood's gonna rip that off.
The only other thing I can think of is in Tolkien, where it's Luvian the Nuthiel, who's the elf princess who goes through all this stuff, and she's immortal, and then she falls in love with a human hero and has to make the choice and decides to become immortal, and then loses her immortality and then has to die because of it. And that's the sort of tragedy. So it's Tristan and Isildur and all these other kind of great stories in mankind, where people who are creatures who are immortal choose to try to be human, and then they get to experience humanity, but they also end up suffering because of it. And I think, I may be very much mistaken, but I think that's kind of what the second movie explores. I'm gonna have to check it out because I've never seen it.
I'm curious.
Yeah,
I'm interested. Sign me up to watch that one. Maybe we'll do it if it's not for Criterion. Maybe we'll do it for another.
Yeah, I'll see if I can't track it down. It's got to be, it's got to be somewhere. I'll go and see what I can find. Right, Rocky?
Right, Rocky.
Do you ever think about what it's like to be human just once?
No, he just wants food. You just want food and love and cuddles. Okay.
I guess the only other thing I think is funny is when these angels are walking by people and everybody's, some people are just talking about regular day-to-day things, and other people are philosophizing, and I'm like, God, I hate to think of what an angel's hearing in my thoughts.
I'm wondering that too.
Yeah, good Lord.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have seen the movie, let us know what you guys think. If you haven't seen the movie, kind of spoiled a lot, so I'm sorry.
But you gotta see it to experience.
You gotta see it to
the visuals are amazing. And
yeah, it is completely and I think you'll enjoy it.
If you're a Peter Falk fan, this is a movie for you.
Yeah, I really didn't like The In-Laws, which is also Criterion, but I love this one.
Very cool.
And that was Peter Falk as well. So but I am a big Peter Falk fan, so there you go.
Not bad for a last second choice.
I know, this wasn't your first choice, so there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for checking this out, and join us next month for a brand new episode. Until
Thanks.
then,
Thanks for taking the plunge with us, guys.
yes.
Bye.
Bye.